My friends must have thought I went home. I looked around, and the beach was empty, which was really weird at this time of year. I tried to take out my phone from my back pocket, but it wasn't there. Apparently, someone had stolen it, or I had dropped it somewhere. I freaked out, not because it had all my pictures in it or anything like that. The problem was that the beach was really far away from the town, and I hadn't told my parents that I had gone to the party. I walked for at least an hour to get home. The weird thing is that everything was closed and there were no cars around. The town looked deserted. I was really confused and I ran home to ask my parents what was going on. But when I got home, the door wasn't locked and my family wasn't there. What the hell was happening? I desperately started looking for a note, but there was nothing. I didn't know what to do or how to contact them, so I went to my friend's house, then to the school and the police station, but no one was there. It seemed that I was the only one left in the entire town. Then a thought crossed my mind. This has to be a dream. There is no other explanation. Of course, it's a dream, Beatrice. Otherwise, how do you explain your parents leaving town without telling you? I felt my heart racing and my head exploding. I was panicking big time. I tried to calm myself down, but it wasn't easy. I thought to myself, whatever is going on, I need a plan. Right now, the most important thing is food. I decided to go to the town center where all the stores were. To my surprise, all the stores were open. I ran into the supermarket to eat something. I was starving. I was alone in a town full of shops that were open just for me. And the best part was that I did not need any money. I decided to explore the abandoned shops. I started with the most beautiful clothes shop in town. I tried on some sunglasses and high-heel sandals and started walking like a model in the dressing room. I tried on all sorts of dresses and outfits. The fabrics were amazing and the jewelry was impressive as well. I danced for a while, and the next day, while I was shopping at the supermarket, I realized that if everything is open, the bank must be too. I grabbed an iced coffee can and some brownies and went to check the bank. Unfortunately, when I got there, it was closed, but I had an ace up my sleeve. I remembered the back entrance my father talked about. My father worked at a bank, and sometimes he had to start working really early, so he used an old entrance that was at the back of the bank. One time, he had to take me to a doctor's appointment, but he needed to drop off some papers at the bank first. So we left early, and he used the old entrance because the bank was closed. I observed him and memorized the passcode. If I was lucky enough, the passcode would be the same. Well, it turns out Lucky is my middle name. I opened the door and started exploring the bank. At some point, I saw a large round door with some kind of metallic ship wheel and a code next to it. I assumed that would be the vault. No wonder this bank was robbed twice. I mean, if a teenager can get in without setting off the alarm. I approached the vault. Apparently, the video games and movies I've been playing and watching are quite accurate when it comes to bank vaults, because after a few tries, I somehow managed to open it. The inside was full of safe deposit boxes. I tried to open each and every one of them, but there was no use. They were all locked. When I was about to get back out, I noticed a small key with the number 58 on it. I picked it up and looked for the safe deposit box number 58. It opened. I looked inside and there was so much money inside. I took a stack of cash and made my way out of the vault. I closed it and went back outside. It was dark. I hadn't noticed how fast time passed. I guess opening the vault took me more time than I had thought. I was tired, so I went back to the mattress store and lied down, but I could not sleep. I stared outside at the calm street. I thought, if this is a dream, it feels more real than I expected. I was starting to get a bit scared. I needed answers. As usual, I woke up and went to the supermarket to eat. Then I decided to go to Tommy's, my crush's house. I mean, if no one was there, it wouldn't hurt to take a sneak peek. Plus, I might get some answers. Who knows? The door was locked, so I had to climb to his window, which, thank God, was open. I jumped inside and instantly started looking for his diary. I thought, if I want to get the dirt, I need the most reliable source. While searching for the diary, I noticed a phone, and it had no PIN code. I'm saved! I yelled frantically. I tried to call my parents, but there was no signal. I checked the phone, and it was supposed to work. The SIM card was inserted, and the phone seemed to be a new model. I sighed and continued the search for the diary. Found it! I was really excited. I wanted to know what Tommy thought of me. Sometimes when I was at the store, we flirted a little. I had actually managed to get his phone number and we've been texting lately. But he never asked me out and I wanted to know why. I started reading the diary and I could not believe my eyes. There was a chance that I might have been the only one who was doing the flirting. In fact, the last page of his diary said, "Should I tell my parents I'm gay?" OMG. I've had a crush on this guy since forever, and he is gay. I was crushed and felt so stupid for a moment. How could I not see it? I put the diary back in its place and made sure to take the phone with me, just in case the signal came back on for some reason. I went down the stairs and opened the door from the inside. I didn't feel like climbing down the window again. I went back to the supermarket, loaded a cart with a bunch of junk food and a gigantic box of ice cream, and headed to the cinema. I had worked there, so I knew how to operate the projector. I sat in the back row so that I could keep my cart close. I grabbed a plastic spoon and dug into my chocolate ice cream to console myself. Now I know who's been robbing my ice cream. I jumped at the sound of a boy's voice. What the hell? I said, I thought I was alone. The boy said, well, that makes two of us. I looked at him in disbelief. He looked at my confused expression and said, I'm Derek, remember? We have algebra and biology together. Of course I remembered him. He was Tommy's best friend, or now that I think about it, maybe his boyfriend? Derek looked worried. Beatrice, you okay? Yes, I'm okay. I'm just surprised to see anyone, I said. He looked at me and asked, do you know what happened? I shrugged and told him how I woke up at the beach and had to walk back to town, only to find that everyone was gone, and that I've been wandering in the town for days. He told me that he's been wandering the town for days as well, but that he came to this area just yesterday. I looked at him while he was talking, and for the first time, I realized how cute he was. No, he was actually handsome with those blue eyes and black hair. That sure is a winning combination, I thought to myself. Derek looked at me and asked me, so what are we watching? I blushed and told him that this was a romantic movie you watch when you feel down. Derek and I talked through the entire movie. I wanted to watch the movie, but I didn't mind. Derek is actually awesome. We turned out to have a lot in common. Actually, we were so caught up in our conversation that we didn't notice when the movie was over. After a while, we decided to go outside. It was already dark. I told Derek I was sleeping at the mattress store, and if he needed a place to sleep, he should come with me because the store was full of comfy mattresses. Derek was a ray of hope in this nightmare. I didn't want to let him go. He agreed, and we went to sleep on two mattresses in front of each other. The next day when I woke up, I caught Derek looking at me and smiling. He said, "Good morning, sunshine." I can swear my cheeks caught fire. We got up and had breakfast. I told Derek that there were still a few places I had not explored and that I would love it if he were to join me. He gave me the biggest smile and told me, "Of course, I'll come with you. It's not like I have better things to do anyway." And he winked at me. I was so glad I wasn't alone anymore. We spent the next 2 days talking, eating, and flirting, actually. He was so sweet and handsome, and I was actually falling in love with him. One day, while we were having a picnic in the park, we started hearing a lot of noise and saw a few cars arrive. I jumped up smiling and said, "We are saved!" To my surprise, Derek looked really anxious and scared. He grabbed my arms and pulled me down and said, "We need to leave. Now." I stared at him confused. "What are you talking about? We've been alone for days, waiting for someone to come back." "Now that they do, you want us to run away?" Derek grabbed my arm and told me, "I don't have time to explain now. Come with me, please." Then, without waiting for an answer, he pulled me up and started tugging my arm to make me follow him. I was starting to get scared. He noticed my expression and I could see the guilt in his eyes, but he said nothing. I felt like we had been walking for an hour when we finally stopped. We were at the beach. I looked around, but I did not recognize this part of the shore. There was an old cabin that looked like it had been abandoned for years. He led me into the cabin and closed the door behind us. I could see that there was a bed and some canned food and sodas. OMG, did he just kidnap me? I hit him in the stomach with my elbow and he let go of my arm. I ran to the other wall. He told me, "Please, don't be scared. I mean you no harm." I did not believe him. "Beatrice, I need you to listen to me." "What could you possibly have to say?" I asked. "I have a confession to make," Derek said. I stood there silently. Everyone was evacuated because they thought a tsunami would have hit the coast. I stared at him in disbelief. He continued to explain. It turned out that the whole town was evacuated very early in the morning, and the beach was too far for me to hear the emergency sirens. My parents tried to come back, but the police wouldn't let them and told them that everyone had been evacuated. I took my parents' car and came to check on you after I heard your parents say that you did not leave with them. I needed to know you were okay." He explained that on his way back, he heard on the radio that it was a false alarm and that it would take some time to get everyone back into their town because the authorities did not want to cause chaos. They had decided to start sending people back to their towns, but decided to do it one town at a time in alphabetical order. Our town was called Saugatuck. so he was pretty sure he had a few days to spend with me and then tell me the truth. So he acted as if he knew nothing about the emergency evacuation and told me that he did not know why there was no one else left in town. He said that the authorities managed to get everyone back faster than he had expected. He looked at me with a sad expression and said, "I'm sorry, Beatrice. I just wanted to spend time with you, and I saw an opportunity." "And you took it," I said angrily. "Yes, but I always intended to tell you the truth, not just about the tsunami." "What else were you keeping from me, Derek?" I asked. His answer left me stunned. He said, "I love you. I always have, but I never had the guts to tell you." I stood there confused. I wanted to tell him that I loved him too, but he lied to me, and he had just kidnapped me. I thought I would never see my parents again, and it seemed that there's a good chance I won't, all because of him. He could have told me, but he chose to let me believe I was alone. I stared at him for a moment and said, "You say you love me, but you lied to me. And on top of that, you kidnap me?" "Kidnap you? No, this is not what this is." "Oh, I'm sorry. The last time I checked, when you force someone to follow you against their will and you lock them up somewhere deserted, it's called kidnapping." He looked at me with a confused look, opened the door and said, "I'm really sorry, Beatrice. I hope you'll forgive me." He went outside and locked the door behind him. I ran to the door and tried to open it, but with no luck. Then I started pounding on the door, screaming my lungs out, but there was no point. I sat on the floor and cried in fear. I thought no one would find me. This part of the beach was totally deserted. After a while, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I saw a disposable phone next to me. I opened it and saw there was a text message. It said, "I'm terribly sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I had actually planned to take you on a romantic date to this cabin. That's why there are candles lying around." I looked around me and noticed the candles. He was telling the truth. He went on, "I put your parents' phone numbers in this phone in case you do not remember them. Call them. You're at South Beach, half a mile from the lighthouse. I hope you'll forgive me one day. I left you something in your bedroom. Again, I'm sorry." I looked at the phone, not sure what to do with this. I went to the door and I opened it. The key was on the outside. I locked the door behind me and called my mom, who started crying at the sound of my voice. I sat on the beach, waiting for them and watching the sunset. It was beautiful. I could see why Derek wanted to bring me here. Why did I still have these feelings for him? He kidnapped me and lied to me, but I still wish he hadn't left. The more I thought about it, the more I convinced myself that he wasn't a bad person. He was just in love. When my parents arrived, they ran to me crying and they hugged me. When they asked me what had happened, I could not bring myself to tell them about Derek. After all, he did not mean to kidnap me at all. So I told them that I had been wandering the town alone for the last few days, and I had found a disposable phone at one of the shops, and I couldn't get any signal, so I tried to come to the beach and check if there was any signal here. My parents didn't question me. They were just so happy that they had found me. When I got home, I remembered what Derek had told me about leaving something in my room. I excused myself and told my parents that I was really tired. I went to my room and started looking around. Then I found an envelope. I opened it. Derek had printed a few selfies that we took with his camera. We looked so happy, and I remembered being happy at the time. Little did I know what would unravel later. A few days after everyone had returned and life went back to normal, the police called. They told my parents that I had robbed the bank during the evacuation. Apparently, the surveillance cameras were still working and filmed me taking the money from the vault. I know what you're thinking. Who is stupid enough to forget that there are surveillance cameras at the bank? But hey, I thought it was just a dream. Anyways, we went down to the police station to answer some questions. When I went in, a police officer asked me my name, and when he looked at the file, I could tell he was about to laugh. He told us to sit down and explain that the bank manager decided not to press charges because he knew me since I was born and did not want to compromise my future. Even though he did not press charges, the officer told me I had to complete 40 hours of community service, which I didn't mind. "There's something else you should know," the officer said with a smile on his face. "You have accidentally robbed your father." I looked at the officer in disbelief, while my father giggled. Even though I was relieved, I was so embarrassed. The police officer proceeded to tell me that I could go, but that my father had to stay in order to fill out some documents to state that he would not press charges against me. That sounded absolutely ridiculous to me. In any case, a month had passed after these events, and I couldn't stop thinking about Derek. In the end, I caved in and called his parents. They told me that he had left town the day after everyone had come back, to stay with his uncle for the summer vacation. This meant that I would not see him for another month. The idea of not seeing him made me feel sad and mad at the same time. How could he just leave like that? Did I mean nothing to him? I would have at least expected a proper face-to-face apology for what he had done to me. I was raging with madness. I took my bike and started riding it as fast as I could, hoping it would make my stress go away. I pedaled and pedaled until I realized where I was going. For some reason, I had ended up at the cabin. I got off my bike and tied it to a palm tree on the sidewalk and started walking toward the cabin. Then I stopped. In the corner of my eye, I saw someone sitting on the shore. I knew my mind was probably playing tricks on me, but from the back, it looked like Derek. I had so many mixed feelings. I was scared and yet still wanted to talk to him. So I thought to myself, for 3 days you did whatever you wanted because you thought you were dreaming. Just do what you want to do. Stop overthinking this. I took my own advice. I slowly started approaching Derek and the beautiful sunset. The closer I got, the faster my steps were, as if there were a magnetic attraction between us. I put my hand on his shoulder and he turned to look at me. 1 heartbeat later, his lips were locked with mine in front of the beautiful sunset.